Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard Clandestine International Airlines Flight 17. I'm your captain, Otto Excelsior, and we are just reaching our cruising altitude of 32,000 feet en route to Shambhala International Airport at an undisclosed location somewhere in the Himalayan or possibly the Himalayan mountains. If you know how to pronounce that, please say so in the comments. Love to hear from you. Here with my co-pilot and electronics warfare officer, the famous Roger Hansen, as usual, in the cockpit here, making sure that not only is the plane flying well, the saucer, I should say, is flying well, but that we've got all electronic countermeasures that we need to travel safely and make sure that you arrive at your destination. Well, the weather says, looks like the forecast should be a pretty clear flight, and we have a good tailwind, so it shouldn't take us too long to get there. I think I'm going to turn off the seatbelt light, so please feel free to unfasten your seatbelt, get up, stretch a little bit. Please visit our lounge on the upper deck. And I am going to light the smoking lamp. The smoking lamp is lit. Smoke them if you got them. And I am now going to switch on the Otto Matic pilot. And here we are. Hello, Roger. How are you today?
I am doing fine. Thank you.
We enjoy comments of any sort. Yeah, it's we've got a lot of places that we're visible, not just YouTube, right? You've got us on Rumble.
We are on Rumble, Twitch, Kick, YouTube, and on Odyssey. I haven't been on there in a while.
Odyssey seems like an interesting platform. I remember I've been there once or twice, but for some reason I tend not to go back. I wonder why that would be. What do you think, Raj?
It's annoying as heck.
That must be it.
I'm trying to say that in a really, really nice way, considering this is family friendly.
Yes. Thank you, Roger. We appreciate that. We all appreciate that very much. Not bad. Oh my goodness. No, I haven't been there in years. I remember going there to check something out, and I guess that was it. Just annoying. It just seemed like it was a little overly complicated, and there are so many other platforms to go look at videos on, kind of deal. So, but hey, we're there too. We're there too, so that's a good thing. Yeah.
I first heard about this from John Clark. He used to be on Library.
Well, who knows? Maybe it'll develop into something. A lot of these platforms, it's just a question of getting used to their little foibles and stuff. But the more the merrier. The more the merrier, I always say. But what I've been thinking about a lot lately, Roger, is the subject of time. Time's an interesting sort of thing. And, I don't know about you, but I have always kind of approached time by what I can actually experience of it. Clocks are wonderful. We've talked about this a lot. And, the reason I'm bringing up time has to do with something that we've all had to cope with, which is when we do something we wish we hadn't done, and then we regret it. And, we've both gone through this ourselves, you and I both, I'm sure. And a couple of people I've talked to lately have been talking to me about things they've done that they wish they hadn't done. And I was remembering something I was always told, and I've heard Buddhists say it, and I've heard other people say it, is that the best thing you can do as a human being when you have made a mistake is to, first of all, you have to be very honest about it with yourself. And it can really help if you can talk it over with somebody that you trust and who you feel is somebody further along the path who can give you good advice. But the best thing you can do is to decide that you don't want to do that again, resolve not to do it, and take steps to keep yourself from doing it again. But otherwise, just don't beat yourself up over it, because that's not going to do anything but waste your energy. And this is the best that we can do as human beings on this planet operating. When we make a mistake, when we make an error, when we do something that's unskillful, something that we really regret doing, we simply, the best thing we can do is learn from it and change what we're doing so we don't have to do it again. And this is an important distinction. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine many years ago, and we were talking about this, about doing things that you regret, and about being, good or bad. And I said, you're not bad, which is, you don't say I did this, so I'm bad. You did this, and it was an unskillful thing to do, and you don't want to do it again. So we move from the idea that you are bad, that it has to do with you as an object, to you've acted badly, perhaps you've acted unskillfully. We can change our actions. If we tell ourselves we're no good, that's not going to help. But if we say what we did wasn't very good, well, that's not pleasant, but it means we can change it. We don't have to keep doing this. So actions can change. But one of the things about this is, and this is the whole thing about got me into time, I'm thinking, when you're thinking back to something that you did, well, according to mainstream Buddhist ideas about time, Theravada Buddhism, the only moment that exists is the present moment. And this is sometimes called presentism. It's not just Buddhists that, there are a lot of schools of philosophy, a lot of people in every culture that have come up with the idea that the only real existing moment in time is the present. And the past doesn't, or the future doesn't exist, and the past does not exist. It's, I don't know if you call it destroyed, it simply isn't there anymore. And yet, we can see the effects of past karma, or karma, if you like, in our everyday life. It can be something as complicated as, well, again, something that you did that you regret that is still leaving emotional scars on you today, even though you can say, well, that happened a month ago or a year ago or whenever. It's not real, and yet the effects are still with us. And this has to do with the perpetuation of karma, which is a sort of a spiritual inertia, is one way you can think of it. But it has to do with intention, but it's also tendencies and intentions that persist over time. But this hasn't always been, the idea of what the past and the future are. There are other schools of Buddhism. There was one school, I'm going to mispronounce this horribly, I'm sure, the Sarvastivadins. Sarvastivadins, yeah. And they felt that the past and the future also existed in one form or another. I believe their name meant something like, basically they were what you'd call eternalists. The idea that everything exists in eternity. And I don't know about that, because I can't see the future and I can't see the past, except we do have deja vu, don't we?
Yeah.
We do seem to sometimes get hints of the past or the future. But be that as it may, the only thing we really can deal with concretely is the present. Even if there is some way of seeing the future, there's nothing we can do about it because it's the future. So I personally don't want to know. I want it to be a surprise. And again, as far as the past goes, it can't affect us directly except through the effects that we see now that we assume come from something that we call the past. So when we are looking at our present karma, when we're looking at a situation we're in, that we can say this is because I did this, or I said this to that person, I behaved this way, I acted unskillfully, and so I have an unskillful result, a result I don't want. It's all happening right now in the present moment. And this, again, I've gone on about it a lot, but this present moment is really your power spot. So whether the future actually exists or whether the future is just a potential, I always like that old saying, the future is unwritten. You have the ability to shape the future. You have the ability to transcend the past by being right here now. And whether the future or past are quote unquote real or unreal, the fact is that right now where you are is what gives you power over the future and the past, whether it's a theoretical future or past or whether they're actually there or not. And this is an amazing power. And this is even power over the mistakes we make. We can't change the results of what we've done. That's, it's like I've said, that's like the blockchain. That is baked into us. Okay, so that's an effect of the past, but we are not irrevocably bound by it. No matter what our situation, we can always decide to act more skillfully, and the more skillfully we act, the more beneficial our results will be, and we'll be happier. And that's really what we all want to be. So, and I'm sure, Raj, I think we've all come on situations where we've had to learn not to beat ourselves up over something, but rather to learn from what we did. And that sometimes is harder to do because we really want to beat ourselves up over something sometimes. In fact, I think that's easier than changing our behavior.
Yeah.
If you do something and then you say, oh, I'm so bad, I'm such a sinner, mea culpa, and da 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 da, and then you go out and do it again because you can't think about it. It's so horrible, you beat yourself up, and then you just want to lock it away and not think about it anymore.
I think
Right.
like you don't like purposely choose to do those things. For me personally,
Uh-huh.
it's just subconsciously because of the guilt and the shame and the remorse. Like
Right.
I didn't mean to go out and completely destroy my life because of that guilt and shame in my head. It caused me to do things which eventually did that.
Well, I guess it's kind of a vicious circle because you've got guilt and shame, and again, we don't like to be ashamed of ourselves, so we tend to hide things away or mask it or repeat the behavior simply because you plunge into it. But you hide things from yourself because of that guilt and shame, and you've talked before, Raj, about the way you have to really be honest with yourself when you're trying to figure out what you're doing wrong in your life.
It's I call it the how. You have to be honest, open-minded, have willingness, and those three things together it helps you remain teachable. Because if you're going to try to change, then you're going to have to learn how to remain teachable. Me personally, no matter what, I get caught up in this way of thinking where I think I know best.
Right.
My way or the highway kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Humility is something that doesn't fit in that area. I have to learn how to practice humility and go back down that path. It's not a good path.
No. I like though that phrase, keeping yourself teachable. And a lot of that has to do with. I think of it sometimes as we build walls around things in our minds. We don't want to look at them, and like you're saying, everything. You're not. You don't need to hear this. What you think is perfectly right, and it always has been. And how dare you challenge this? And that's also kind of a sign of insecurity. I think sometimes because deep inside you're doing stuff to screw up your life. Part of you knows you've got to look at these things, but part of you really doesn't wanna. And it's like, what? There's nothing wrong here, and I don't need to learn this. But to be able to be teachable, you have to, I think, tear down some of those walls and open yourself up. And the humility is, and that's not humiliation. It's simply being humble. Being willing to say, you know what, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to learn. Very difficult thing for me to learn. I loved to learn to do that because I love to talk, And one of the things when I was a kid, I'm still learning. I'm trying to learn how to listen to people better. It's something I try to do better every day. But yeah, we really need to stay teachable. I really like that idea, Rod.
It was something that was taught to me, and a lot of people hate the word habit. They hate the word repetition.
Yeah.
You can't just say, "Hey, you're going to be that way," automatically.
Well, I think we're kind of hardwired, especially if we get in a conversation with someone. It can be about anything, and we tend to automatically say, "No, I'm right," and you just you argue without you just stop listening to the other person, and you're just thinking of like ways to make your own argument. And I remember once, this was many years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. Haven't seen him in many years. This was out when I used to live out in the city of Buffalo. My goodness, probably something like 30 years ago or more. No, more like 40. I'm getting old. So but we were talking about music, and it doesn't matter what the details are, but he was trying to convince me that this one genre of music was really good, and I was like, no, it's not. And the more he's like arguing, I'm just automatically, oh no, da da da. So finally, we're going on about this, and I mean, it's not a bad argument, really. It's just two friends having a very like vocal discussion, and we're like, what da 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 da. And finally, I just said, you know what, Mike, you're right. I'm going to give it a listen. And it was funny because he was all worked up to keep going with this really, vocal discussion, and he just go, and his jaw drops, and then he kind of turned slightly red and slightly white, and he said, "Oh, okay." But you could see all the emotion and stuff just had to go away suddenly because I said, "You know what? I'm going to give it a listen." Because I just suddenly said to myself, "Why am I arguing about this? I don't really even care." And to be fair, I haven't even listened to this. That this guy's convincing me and stuff, and I'm just arguing in order to get Mike's goat. So and. Yeah, so I made myself teachable. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn about this. But my first reaction was, I don't want to learn about this. I don't need to learn anything from this guy about this, and I know my music that I like, and I don't need to learn anything else. And so yeah, but it really surprised him. I think we can surprise other people sometimes when we can just suddenly break that automatic way we do things sometimes. I think that's a lot of it too. Well, you were talking about habit and repetition because we have a lot of bad habits, I think.
They're really or entwined in us too. Like I don't really like getting caught up in religion, but there's one thing that really did work. I literally had to make an inventory of all of my shortcomings to self evaluate. I had to actually go to another person, like talking about a second ago, and I had somebody who I felt comfortable about, who I knew actually knew what I'm talking about and give good advice. I sat down with him, and he just told me like it was, like, now look, you, first of all, when you do this, it comes to making amends to other people, that other person say, look, man, I know you feel bad about this, but you don't owe that person. And there's some people who you don't even know you haven't make amends to. So you need other people so that they can kind of help you set things
Right.
straight.
Give you another perspective on things.
Right. Because
That's interesting about not making amends to everyone. Because I'd heard about the making amends thing, but but it makes a lot of sense. There's some people that you just can't. It's not appropriate to try to make amends with them anymore.
This is crazy logic pointed out to me. You sober up. You don't want to hurt yourself or another person. Making amends has to. Okay, you can't make amends to be selfish, to help to save yourself.
Right.
Like there's situations in the program where men who've gone out and cheated on their wives, their sponsor told them, look, now if it involves having to tell your wife who that other person is, you do not need to be making amends by going to your wife and telling her, because that would put this other person in harm's way.
Right. Yeah. Other people are involved.
Right.
And it gets complicated, which is a good reason not to cheat on your spouse, among other things. It just gets too complicated.
There are situations where you have to carry that guilt.
Right. I guess making an amends in that case would be like not repeating the behavior by being a good husband and, breaking off contact with the other person. And I see what you mean about visiting your drug dealer. It's like, well, I'm going to make amends. I owe him a gram of cocaine. So, something like that, that's not appropriate. And that also gets into that. And I know it's really important, and we've talked about it. And I've talked about it with other people. Our friend Bob Dub used to say, you need a new playground and new playmates.
Exactly.
And that is so important.
Very important.
So you don't want to go back to the playground and say, hey, I'm really sorry, you guys.
New playgrounds and new playmates. Exactly what it is. And don't get me wrong, if you have to go into a liquor store to buy a pack of cigarettes, something like that's okay, but don't make it a habitable. Because you can always justify at some
Mm.
point.
Oh, I've told you stories where it's like you're driving around suddenly. Why did I take this turn to drive past this liquor store? I didn't need to take this road, but there's like something in you that's like, oh, go get your smokes in there. Well, that's that playground thing too, because you see everyone else is buying a bottle. Look at all these cars going in and out. It's normal. Look, the smiling clerk wants to hand you stuff. So it's yeah, important to stay out of those playgrounds. Very important indeed.
Well,
But
I
at least
had to focus on trying to like justification. Those are the things I focused on. Because when I try to rationalize, stop it before.
logic will take you anywhere you want it to. That's one of its downfalls. That's why people are schizophrenics. We've talked about that, where you just have one premise that's wrong, but everything else makes perfect sense. And the next thing you know, you're back at the old playground again. That's good that you were able to grab that part of your mind. I always say it's like you grab your mind by the throat and shake it a little bit and say, "Hey, you're not pushing me around anymore, pal. What do you think you're doing? I'm onto you." Uh,
Right.
uh,
It's
but making amends to people, that's an important part of dealing with these unskillful things we've done, and a lot of it is, it seems to me, resolving it in yourself.
yeah.
Because until you resolve it in yourself, you're going to carry it around, and again, we will tend to hide it from ourselves. And when we hide things from ourselves, I think that helps when we're rationalizing things.
Yeah.
You know, because somebody pointed out when we're doing these rationalizations, there's always some arguments that aren't very good, and they're
Yeah.
usually from some hidden part of ourselves. And usually, if you try to question that part of yourself, they're not going to give you very. They're just going to get hysterical, or somebody said once, if you're arguing with someone or you're like talking to someone, if they have a good argument, they'll just say, well, no, that's the wrong translation of that word, or actually it means this, and you're just going to be quiet about it. But if you don't have a good argument, you start saying, what do you mean? How dare you question me? you know
Mhm.
that's always a giveaway when the mind doesn't really want to let you in on its reasoning.
Well, I know, like, I don't know if I've told you, Bob W, but like my youngest boy, Wayne, result of me rationalizing and making an amends. Okay.
Oh, oh
Yeah.
my goodness! Well, how does that
Yeah.
happen?
Well, I had somehow rationalized that I needed to make an amends to an ex-girlfriend that I had. And
Uh-oh.
of course, I go over there and I start talking all sweet and everything. Next thing you know, man, we're kissing and
You got a kid on the way.
yeah, so
Oh my goodness.
there's a whole there's a whole area of different things that you need to know about when it comes to making amends. You just don't go out and start apologizing, making amends. And I
Right.
also want to point out too, an amends isn't saying you're sorry. A lot of people mix that up. Like when you make amends to somebody, you have to go up to them and say, "Is there any way I can make an amends to you without hurting you, or anybody else in the process?" And if they want you to do something for them, then you need to do it for them. I knew somebody who actually redid somebody's roof because they need the roof
Nice.
done.
Nice.
Things like that. Most of the time, people say no,
Right.
but if they want you to do their roof, you get up there and you do their roof. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
that's one thing that they tell you. So if you're not into like redoing people's roofs.
Yeah, it's true. When we hurt others, we really hurt ourselves. But when we help others, I think we really help ourselves. And that can sound a little selfish, but um, the better we make ourselves, the better the people around us will be. They'll be much happier to have us around. And I have noticed, and you noticed too, when somebody comes into a room, they can bring a really good vibe, and everybody in the room is in a good mood. But other people can walk into a room and they can bring a really bad vibe and make everything. And I was thinking about what you were saying about how important it is to make the right kind of amends to someone. You don't want to bring your dealer money at home, but you might offer to drive him to a treatment program.
Yeah.
Or talk to him about if he's trying to, like, hey, I feel much better now that I'm not, on this stuff, man. Really, you should give it a try, kind of deal. So, and of course, it comes down again, like I was saying before. So much of it is, I think, just changing your own behavior, so that I mean, the greatest way you can make amends, I think, to people is that you don't behave in the ways that hurt them
Right.
in the past anymore.
And I mean, it's when people see the way you behave. Okay. You lead by example. To that old drug dealer. Maybe like you said, someday he might want to sober up. He's gonna
Yeah.
remember. He's gonna remember his buddy over sobered up and went to treatment. You could actually help those people just by doing the right, stay sober, be an example for. Because there's nobody else out there who can help an alcoholic or drug addict. You put two
Um,
alcoholics and drug addicts in the same room, they do something. You can call it magic if you want to do something. Nobody knows what that is, but they do it.
well, you've got to have been there to be able to talk to someone about it. I think with a lot of, I've heard that's with and I mean, I think if you're coming out of addiction like that, drugs, alcohol, whatever, you're going to be suffering from PTSD, really, because it's a horrible, it's traumatic. And I've heard it's very similar with people that come back from war that suffer from PTSD. That talking to other people that have gone through a similar experience, sometimes it's the only way you can make a connection with someone, you know? So I'm not surprised. But that example thing is that's a powerful thing, and I think people really underestimate it because I was talking to someone not long ago, and they felt they were misunderstood by someone, and I said, I'm misunderstood sometimes too, and the way I generally deal with it is I just go forward and I keep doing my thing. And I always like to think that my actions will, in the long run, speak louder than what people might think about me. And I've generally found that to be the case. And people, when they're misunderstood, they want to fix everything right away. It's like, no, be an example, and that really can be very powerful to people. And I've even had it with me. I've had people. I don't feel like I'm a particularly good example or anything, but I've had people come up to me and they've said, "Wow, um, you're really cool," or like that. I don't feel particularly cool, but and then they ask me advice about something or other, and it's just nice that people notice. But it's just being an example like that. Being if someone's lying there in a puddle of their own vomit, as we've all occasionally done, and when you think about your buddy that isn't doing that anymore, and who really likes you, and you can talk to him because he did this too.
Right.
And yeah, that example is always there, even if they're not always aware of it. You can make this quiet contribution to the people around you, which is so cool. See, you're a great example to people, Roger.
I don't know about all that.
Well, I
I'm
do.
I'm just a little too ornery, man, and you know,
Uh, oh,
People,
ornery isn't bad.
well, that's true. Today, people talk talk to me, and dogs seem to like me. Something must be working. And I didn't come up with that on my own. When you start noticing that people allow you to handle their money, to go down to the
Right.
store, you know,
The
where
trust. Yeah.
like you go down to the store and get them food and stuff, and they don't worry about you stealing stuff anymore. You know something good's happening. Because
Yeah.
when I was younger, my parents didn't trust me when it came to doing stuff like that for. I mean, something had to have happened. There was a big change there. That's a trust issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it I think sometimes we're short-sighted, especially when we're kids. Oh, look, there's a dollar, and you don't think any further than that, but it does feel good when people trust you. And it feels very good when you know that they have good reason to trust you and that you fulfill their trust. And it makes you feel good about yourself. And that's also kind of part of that living example thing, because you live, you go through, you do the right thing, and people notice and say, "Hey, I can trust you. Here, take my wallet, Raj. Go down to the store, get me some milk." You know, it's it feels good, and it is so much better for us in the longer term. And as a sane person, as a grown up today, you would think it would be silly to risk a friendship with someone over $1 or two. It's just, and the good feeling we get from knowing that we're reliable people. I love being a reliable person. I'm not overly reliable. I try to get to places on time, but I show up for every band practice unless I've got a really bad case of the flu or something like that. I think I've missed like maybe 2 or 3 band practices in the last couple 3, 4, 5 years, however long we've been playing now. So yeah, it's really feels good. It really feels good to do that.
I think when with me, I first sobered up and I moved back home the first time to be with my family, and
Uh-huh.
I was living at my mom and dad's house. I wanted to take walks, and I remember every morning when I did that, my dad would get into his van and he'd circle the blocks.
Nice. He cared.
He did that. He did that for about 2 months.
Nice. Nice.
But it took him 2 months before he could trust me.
But you showed him that you could be trusted,
Exactly.
and you could take that walk every time, and it didn't matter whether there was a van there or not. You were taking your walk, and you had your path, and uh,
I
and
never
that must have made him really feel good when he realized he didn't have to follow you around.
I never let him know either that
Oh, you're such a good son.
I
You're good.
not one time, man. I was like I was just like wow. Yeah. I'm like, my goodness,
Oh,
was I really that bad? And then
oh,
the kids with meditation, I'm gonna tell you something. They they could not handle their Uncle Rogers sitting there in the front room, eyes closed. My little niece comes up first time. What is he doing? And my nephew Jake, and I'm trying to be quiet because I'm not letting him break my concentration, my
right.
meditation. And Jake goes, he's doing that weird thing they taught him how to do in AA. And I'm just sitting there, I'm trying my best not to make any.
The meditator's life.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. People should try that stuff because I mean, first of all, the people around you just completely trip out. It just blows their mind, you know.
these are these are the fun aspects of meditation most people don't know about.
Yeah.
But it's true. What Roger's saying is perfectly true, ladies and gentlemen.
Then what
Uh,
what else is good? Oh, I went to a all you can eat Chinese buffet, sitting around with all these, or my ex girlfriend, and we're sitting there, and I put my hands up on the table and I start praying, and it's like they all got like all self conscious about it. They're like, oh, they they got all quiet and everything. I was like, oh, you know,
Well, when you're doing something like that, it seems to me that you are not only blowing their minds, but you're freeing yourself because you're doing stuff that you would never have done before. I take it like, there was a time in your life, Roger, where you didn't pray at the Chinese buffet
no,
before eating. So that was not normal behavior for your circle. And when you step out of that mold, when you do something completely different from anything you've ever done before, man, and you do it with confidence, and especially like you're saying with a bunch of other people, um, that's really empowering. That seems. I mean, for me, whenever I do something like that people don't expect, but I'm holding to my own thing, um, yeah, it freaks them out, but it's also like, yeah, I'm doing this because this is what I'm doing. And I'm in a different world from everyone around me suddenly. And I placed myself there, you know, because I like this world better. I like a world better when where I'm not drinking, where I'm meditating, where I'm praying, where I'm more mindful of what I'm doing in my life. And we think this stuff a lot, but it's really scary to do, especially when there's other people around. We really want to be like other people. And that's part of that breaking out of that playground and playmates thing, you know? So you're there with a bunch of your old playmates and you were what's the old saying? You were among them but not of them. In the world but not of the world. So that must have been a really you must have had a lot of experiences like that, Rod.
well, people have a really hard time with inviting me to Chinese buffets. Just put it out there, like they they still, other than the fact that I eat like a pig, other than
What's a
that,
buffet? Come on.
and my,
Oh,
the thing too when it comes to a lot of that is uh it was good that people would see me do that stuff, but at the same time, I don't want to get the impression that I was doing it for people around me. It was more for myself, like you were talking about right there,
yes. Yeah.
because that's very important. You have to do stuff for yourself. Because
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way, and I tell people this all the time, and they get mad at me when I say it because they don't believe it. But this is the truth, okay? The moment, right now, everybody loves to talk to me that I'm a better person. But the moment I pick up alcohol, I pick up drugs, I automatically become that person. The moment I do
Mm.
that, not only do I personally become that person, but they also see me. I've seen it over and over again. People that I've sobered up with, they've not only turned into that person. So, in perspective, when I say I'm doing this stuff, I'm doing it for myself, because if I do it for other people and I end up failing, then I'm going to freaking not only disappoint myself, I'm going to disappoint them, but I have to do stuff for myself.
Yeah. And I
Because,
think it's interesting what you said about how when somebody starts acting drunk again, starts drinking again, or whatever, everyone else around them falls into the same pattern.
yeah,
Oh, it's so and so the drunk again, and they start looking at it that way, and they start acting the way they do around you, and it just drags everybody back down.
it's a horrible codependent relationship. And that's something that people have a hard time with too. They don't want to accept the fact that when you're in a relationship with somebody who's an alcoholic, you have to ask yourself, why am I in a relationship with somebody who's an alcoholic? There's a reason why you're with that person. You're the one who chose them. That's the same way with me. It's like I can't blame women for my problems. I'm the one who chose them.
Right. Right.
So
And they chose you. You know,
exactly.
it is a codependency thing. Yeah.
So those are questions that people have to ask, and if you're not willing to do it, I mean, it's a rough road. Part of being in a relationship. Heck, I
Mm.
really feel sorry for the people who got married, and because I was single,
Yeah. You had
but
that advantage.
freaking you're all grumpy sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like those poor women. They had to put up with you, and you're all grumpy and whatever. Coffee. They're not trying to take my cigarettes again. You know,
Uh,
leave me alone. Stop telling me to do stuff.
sounds like a Grateful Dead song. Reminds me of the lines like that. Easy wind, if you know the song. I'm trying to find a woman be good to me, won't hide my liquor, try to serve me tea.
Yeah.
Uh, don't hide my cigarettes on me. uh, but yeah, that is true. When you get in a relationship with someone and you change and they don't, they can be shocked. And wait, you're not supposed to act like this. I just got used to you acting this way, kind of deal. So it can be really, if people. I guess it's one of those things where if you're on a path with somebody else, you got to stay on the path together.
Yeah.
You know, and
Uh, I've
yeah,
had a lot of friends of mine. I don't want to mention names,
right,
but I've had
yeah,
a lot of friends. They they were kind of upset about it, even though it was horrible that they were drinking and doing drugs. They were
right,
upset about it because it wasn't the same. Just because your spouse sobers up, that doesn't
hmm
mean that you're responsible. That person should be able to stay sober. If it
So
does,
it's up. It should be up to the person to decide whether they want to quit drinking, not be forced to by someone else. Because somebody might also say, and I've known people do this too. Well, if you're going to quit drinking or quit smoking or whatever, I'll do it too
right,
to support you.
right,
And I
make a
think that's a
mistake.
good thing if you voluntarily do it. But I can see where it would be wrong to try to pressure someone because that's not going to take very well.
Right.
You know,
And
it's like,
usually that's failed. It's gonna fail. You know what I mean? If you're doing it for
right,
somebody else, that goes for anything, even a cigarette. How many times have you
mm.
said it? We're gonna quit together, and you never did. Yeah.
Yeah, you're both supporting each other, and then suddenly you're both saying, "Hey, let's go get a pack."
Mhm. The moment she's
uh,
around that corner puffing that cigarette butt, you're like, oh, it's on like Donkey Kong. you're, you're on the way to the store, It's
oh,
like,
she broke Trump, so I can have one now too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That resolution never freaking stands.
Mm, mm.
Don't ever do it for somebody else. I guess you could call that a noob.
Yeah.
I've heard that cool word. Cool kids these days, they say you're just a noob. I'm like, dude, I'm
Wow.
2 years old. I'm anything
New.
but a noob.
I know it's amazing how the slang goes. I guess noob is short for newbie,
Yeah.
which I guess was short for a new boy, new guy. I guess I don't know. They just keep shortening things.
Oh
I
yeah.
guess it's all the texting because people don't want to use. Have you noticed that? I mean, when I was younger, nobody ever called the president of the United States the POTUS
Yeah.
or the Supreme Court of the United States the SCOTUS or SCOTUS.
Yeah.
And it seems like more and more we're getting all these abbreviations are just, suddenly becoming part of our spoken language even, which is really odd to me. But you just can't predict how a language is going to go. Noob. All I can think of is the Brand Nubians. But
It-
uh,
my my whole thing with that was I told you about my sixth grade teacher, seventh grade I think. Yeah.
I don't know. Tell me.
She, she used to tell me ain't isn't a word.
Ah.
And that was back when I was in 6th or 7th grade. Now, ain't is a word.
Huh. Well, to be fair, ain't is in Shakespeare, but it's not a proper word. But I don't know. We can start arguing about English usage because you've got like the two. I told you that I saw this great talk by this English professor who was saying that dictionaries don't define words. Dictionaries record what people are saying, but you can say any word you want any way you want. That's usage, and the dictionary is supposed to follow usage, right? But then I like using words the way I think they're supposed to be used. So I'm one of those guys. Well, ain't isn't a proper word. You don't use it in certain sentences, although you can use it in others. Um, and I always joke. I don't like any changes in the English language made after 1701 or something like that. So it's tough because a lot of the time I find that we're losing nuance with our words. Words don't mean what they did, or we tend to just, I don't know, like we throw the word love around a lot.
Yeah.
And and the Greeks had like I don't know how many different words for love, agape and eros and this and that, and like the love of parents, the love of friends, the love of husband and wife, the love of cousins, just all the different ways that human beings bond with each other. And we just have like one word that we use now, love. When you can say, um, I love someone. And well, how much do you love? Well, I love you more than I love pizza, and I sure do love pizza. I mean, what does love mean? You got to be careful with the word love.
Yeah.
Um, in Buddhism, there's that the word in Pali is metta, which is translated. Usually, the original translation in English was loving kindness, right? And this has become a problematical translation, and a lot of people like to use one translator uses the word goodwill instead of loving kindness because people now, when they hear loving kindness, they're thinking, oh, it means you have to love people. It's like, no, the word is loving kindness. Loving is an adjective describing the kind of kindness. In other words, you should be kind to someone, and that kindness should be a loving, generous kind of kindness. It's not kind loving, right? So these are, we used to have very nuanced ways of using language, but nowadays people simply, they don't, I don't think they understand their own language. And that's terribly elitist of me. And it goes completely against, well, people should be allowed to use the language however they want. Yes, unless they don't use it the way I want them to. And that's when it all falls down, unfortunately. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to love, to be honest with you, I didn't know what love was. I thought I did. I thought I had a grasp on it. It really, I mean, I felt more emotions in the last 6 months. I brought it up on show I did with Tan where they were talking about the Catholics, how they have those stations.
Yeah, Stations of the Cross. I remember that.
There's this one where Jesus falls and Mary goes to pick him up and he looks up at her and he, see now, Mother, even now I make all things new. I mean, like when my mom and my dad passed away, it's strange how that works. It's just in a weird place. I don't know. I actually had real feelings. No, I don't think I really had true emotions until that. I remembered it back when my grandparents died, and like sitting and talking to my sons,
Wow.
and that's the one thing I wanted. Like don't overcomplicate, because in reality, that's
It's a knockout blow,
yeah.
when you get something like that happen. And I think, we people in the West, in America, and especially we men, we learn to put up a lot of shields against our emotions. And we learn to ignore those walls I always talk about inside of ourselves. We wall things away. We're tough. We don't cry. We don't do this, right? We're going to be stoic. And it takes a lot. And this gets back to looking inside ourselves and seeing what's really in there. And when something happens, like when you lose your parent, you know, I lost my dad. My mom is not well. I mean, she's well enough, but she's almost 100. I don't think she's going to be with us much longer. I mean, I hope so, but um, you can't escape that. That just you can't ignore it anymore. I remember that movie, um, the Seventh Seal, where the one of the points of that movie was that if you watch that film, every scene has death in it, and we don't want to look at death, and our culture avoids death, even though we're surrounded with it all the time. And when something grabs you and says, "Look, man," you suddenly have to, and you suddenly have to feel these things and look inside. And I think, Raj, uh, part of it is not just that you've gone through these losses, but also you have been preparing yourself with all this work you've been doing on yourself to be able to realize what was happening. Because I dare say that there was a time in your life when even something like this happening, you would not have been able to digest it, able to understand what was going on as well.
If it was the old me, I would, I should be drunk right now. With you,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's a weird thing too, because it's like there's moments where I know, and
Hmm.
I don't even know what that is. Just so much time, maybe something like that. But I don't. I mean, the old me wouldn't have been.
Yeah, yeah. Dive right into a bottle and stay there as long as you could.
Amazing,
Yeah,
really.
but you also have better knowledge now,
Yeah.
and I think you know down in your bones that that's not an answer. It's not a good place to go, and it just makes things so much worse. And I'm really glad you're not drunk, Raj, because you're here making great content, the hardest working man on the internet, talking with dozens of people from all over the planet on some of the wildest subjects ever. This is, I think, a much better use of your time in this life than swimming around in a bottle, dude. I'm very glad you're not, man. I'm glad we've got you here doing things.
I'm glad to be here. I've met a lot of good people. I know we have a friend out there struggling.
Yes.
I just figured it would be a good way about maybe talking about it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's good for us to talk about, and our friend's been struggling a bit and been reaching out. I think he's doing pretty well, and like to get him on the show sometime. I was actually talking to him about that, Roger, because you were talking about having him come and join us on one of these many shows you have. His problem is his time zone
Yeah.
different, and he works during the week. But I said, we're pretty flexible with time, so I'm hoping we can maybe set up a special time
Yeah.
when maybe we could do a little show with him. Him, you, me, maybe even get another couple of people on that might be interested. But I think that would be really good to do.
Agree.
And he was talking about how you have to pick yourself up again when you slip, because we all slip.
Right.
We've all had slips, and I always think of that song, "Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again." And I remember one of the early times when I was first studying Buddhism, not first studying, but I mean when I was studying Buddhism very seriously a few years ago. I remember this one teacher saying, the habit you have is of picking yourself up again. That's your habit. Every time you slip, you pick yourself up. It has nothing to do with the slipping. It's the getting back, get back up, go back forward, get back up, keep going forward again and again and again. And don't tell you, oh my God, not this again. No, that's your default, is picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and not staying there worrying about it, being full of regrets. Because I've seen that be, you sit there and you beat yourself up, and then that's just an excuse not to do any more work.
Right.
Because you feel so bad. I already slipped once. I might as well stay slipped, kind of deal. And
That's actually become a saying in the 12-step program. They say relapse is a part of recovery. It's like what you just said right there. That's very positive. Relapse is actually part of recovery, and I like to point out to people that I went to detox 3 times before I finally decided to go to treatment. I ended up losing my relationship, who at the time I thought I loved with all my heart, but I would not go to treatment. I kept saying, well, I'll go to detox. So I detoxed for about a week. Hit the meetings, get
yeah,
drunk again. I did that 3 times before I finally decided to do the treatment. It's interesting how
yeah,
life works itself out. I ended up homeless on the street.
Roger the Panhandler. My goodness.
California, California got me drunk. Kansas City almost killed me, dude.
Wow, what happened in Kansas City?
They gave me too much money, man.
Oh,
I mean, and they'll give you dollars in Kansas or in California. In Long Beach, dude, you just sit out there at the shopping centers, and you go to Kansas City and they're handing you like nickels and change, and you got all this change hanging in your pockets. Next thing you know, you're ready to freaking overdose from alcohol, man. Got too much change.
oh, and you gotta spend it.
Yeah, I was walking around with my pocket sounding like a piggy bank. People handing that
Oh my
stuff to
goodness.
you. I don't know if that's
Well, you don't want to
actually
fall. You
helpful.
want to fall in a canal if you got your pockets full of change.
Yeah, sink to the
You go
bottom.
right to the bottom.
So yeah, I mean, I had to hit rock bottom before I decided to sober. Maybe you're
I
helping them.
think when you're saying that, about that, the part of the process is when you slip. Um, how did you put it again?
Relapse is a part of recovery.
Relapse. Yeah, I think part of that is so people understand that a relapse is not an abnormal thing to happen. Because I have a feeling some people are like, "Oh, I've relapsed. I didn't do it. It's over. I ruined it. It's broken. It didn't work for me." Kind of deal. Instead of saying, "No, it's okay. This happens. It's part of the process. It's part of the process is picking yourself up." So, but
That's
I can see how
literally,
people might be a little worried about even just a single slip.
yep. And I'm glad you said process. It's a process. I think that's what really spooks people out too, because it seems medical, sterile. But
Right.
you have to think in those terms. There's a certain degree where you have to treat it like a process.
Right. You're taking steps. It's not like instant push a button and it's all. You've got to go through the process, and I guess you have to have faith in the process.
Yeah. Well, that'll come eventually.
I guess part of it is being ready for things to take time. It's like we were saying before about how you're an example by just doing your thing, being true to yourself, and like you said, doing it for yourself, because you're the only person you can really focus on. And yeah, it's not going to happen instantly, but you have to have confidence that even though you're doing this and you're not seeing immediate results, it is a process and it's working. It's
Right.
working, and it will get you there. It'll get you there. And you can look at the people who have gotten there, and they can say, "Yeah, you'll get there. You've gotten there, and now you're one of the top top YouTubers in the country, I think.
Oh, you wanted me to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
I was like,
Keep talking, Roger.
well, you said that you got there, it's like that old guy said in that meeting again, and he told me you're not there 3 days in the grave. Yeah, he's like,
Oh, reminds me. Did the dogs ever not like you, Roger?
yeah, dogs hated me with a passion. Cats,
Really?
now dogs could not stand me, especially the little
Really?
chihuahuas. Little chihuahuas
Wow.
used to hate me with passion.
Well, yeah, some dogs just don't like anyone.
Yeah,
They're just bad tempered, but
she still loved me, but she was one of those little like chihuahua dogs that would just growl at you petting her. You know what I mean? It's like you go to pet her and she's like, oh,
yeah,
like
yeah.
seriously, like
I've known a few catchy dogs like that, but I'd never heard that before. That when people sober up, animals start liking them. I hadn't heard that like animals didn't like drunks.
yeah, it's a big issue. Like they really can. Animals can really tell when
Yeah,
dogs.
well, I don't blame them. If you think about it, the dogs are sober all the time,
Hmm.
and they got to put up with somebody that's drunk. And I was a bartender for a while, and that's what got me first drinking heavily. I think I told you the story. When you're in there working with drunks all day, it really helps to have a drink because it's so frustrating to put up with drunk people if you're sober,
Right.
and that's part of what drives that playground thing. You go into the bar, everybody's an idiot. Well, you have a couple of shots, and you're an idiot too. So you don't care. Everybody's an idiot there, but the poor dog has to live with an idiot. So um, yeah, I'd never heard that. Yeah, I've always gotten along pretty well with animals. I mean, I think I've met 3 dogs that didn't like me much over the years. Out of, I don't know, I've probably met hundreds of dogs, and cats almost universally like me.
Yeah.
I'm very famous for going over to my friend's house, and the next thing you know, their cats and dogs are all over me. That would be enough to get me to quit immediately. If I'd never had animals not like me. Poor Roger to be ostracized by dogs. That must have sucked.
Oh, they love me now though. It's
Oh,
like
that's good.
I can definitely tell you that drinking is something. Take a look at like my old
Right.
state IDs. I was always stressed out. You just see it.
Wow. Wow.
I never even.
Oh, well, the stress gets right into your muscles. You know it. It gets into your face and into your shoulders, and you walk around all stressed out. And then you see a picture like that. You should do a photo montage of different pictures of your face as you get more relaxed.
Yeah. Well, I need to
That'd
stop
be
frowning.
interesting. Well, frowning can have advantages. I remember the famous thing, if you look angry or like frowning, you look busy. So if
Yeah.
you're working in an office and they look in your office door and you're there with a frown on your face, oh, I better leave him alone. But if you're smiling, they'll say, "Hey, can you do this work too?" So it can really help you out sometimes.
I
Well, Roger, I was going to say I'm very glad that dogs like you now, and, I think that that's a really good lesson because animals are very wise about a lot of things, and if dogs and cats don't think it's a good idea for you to be a drunk, then I agree with the dogs and cats. They've got wisdom. They're telling us something important, Roger.
agree.
Well, Roger, I think I'm getting a signal. Yes, I am getting a signal from Shambhala International Airport. They're going to be opening up the giant doors on the side of the mountain so that we'll be able to fly in there. Hope everyone has enjoyed their flight on Clandestine International Airlines flight number 17. We'll soon be heading into Shambhala International Airport. For people that are shipping over to Agartha, you'll be leaving our ship. If you're going on to our home base of New Swabia, just stay in your seats. I am going to be getting ready to get back into landing mode. Well, you can, of course, check out my website as far as finding out what I'm up to. It's navakavada, That's NAVAKAVADA. It's spelled just like it sounds. I'm also on minds.com, Otto_X. That's EX, by the way. Some people were confused. And otherwise, I am at all of the places that Roger mentioned, often at Roger's Hangout or on Discord, or at the Element chat. And of course, you might very well run into me down at the store, and messenger pigeons have been known to reach me. Roger, it's been a really great show tonight. Thank you very much for being our co-pilot and electronics warfare officer.
I love being here.
Well, all right. That being said, I am going to turn off the smoking lamp. Stewards will be by to collect pipes, rolling papers, other things that you might have. I am turning on the seatbelt light. Please return your seat to an upright position. Fasten your seatbelt. And I'm switching off the automatic pilot, and we're making our final approach to Shambhala International Airport at an undisclosed location in the Himalayan or possibly Himalayan mountains. Thank you, everyone, for flying clandestine international airlines. We hope to see you again next week.